happy to have a Mary Magdalene among us to actually talk to. I remember once you mentioned that you had always thought when you were younger that you would love to play Mary Magdalene. So do you remember how old you were when you started to think that, and why, what attracted you to her in the first place?
I was raised in a Catholic church, Maronite Catholic church. And so we focused a lot on the New Testament, and it wasn't until really like I got a little older that I even really focused on any of the Old Testament. So Mary Magdalene was like a major character in, in learning about Jesus and his life. I knew that I wanted to be an actress when I was really young.
Okay.
I was really shy, and I don't know, it came naturally to me to be on stage and suddenly start performing. And so it was this thing I never really thought I would go into. It didn't seem very practical, and it's not very practical.
No.
So it was always just sort of this dream to perform, something so historical. And I don't remember the interview that I said that I wanted to play here. I remember saying that I really liked her as a character when I was younger, and that I wanted to be an actress. So I don't remember like a moment where I was like, I want to play that character. I never thought I'd ever have the opportunity to play a character like that. And so when I did book it, it was such a wonderful surprise that like this is a possibility for me in my career.
Those who are watching The Chosen, they've witnessed Mary Magdalene's encounter with Jesus as she is liberated from those 7 demons, and I thought it was beautiful how it was portrayed. But how did you manage to get into that experience and somehow identify? You just put your whole self there into that moment. What is it that helped you to identify with her in this sort of before and during the liberation and being set free?
I've mentioned before in other interviews that I was on the tail end of a like 2-ish year depression, year-long depression. I was in a rough spot of just sort of like kind of feeling despair and kind of like giving up in certain areas of my life, acting being one of them. The dreams that I held so closely, I was like, this isn't working. And I felt like I was always pushing and trying things and nothing ever was like working. So, getting into, it's hard for me to talk about depression now because I'm not in it. Right. It feels like a different version of me, like something from long ago that I want to honor that experience because it taught me and helped me play Lilith in a way that I don't think I would have been able to had I not gone through it. So I'm grateful for that period in my life where I was feeling a lot of despair. Only because it like informed me of like how I empathized with Lilith. I empathized and sympathized with, Mary before she's transformed, which I think, gave me some insight and some compassion and sensitivity to all the scenes as Lilith. Of course, I was wanting during that period to have a second chance, to have like this sense of redemption and like a do-over. And so that came to me through the script, through the story, and through the character of like, she actually gets this like clean sweep, like next chapter, like
start again.
The past, get away from it, stop living in it, stop being that. And like, here's an opportunity to become really what she is meant to become, who she's meant to be, who we know her as. Because when I was young, I had no idea that she was demon possessed or that there was any sort of exorcism. I had no idea. I just knew that she was Jesus's like closest friend.
Wow.
She was there at the resurrection. She was there at the cross. Like I just knew her as that element. So it was this specific thing in her character that was a surprise to me when I read the script. And then I thought, this is such a big part of like, it's just like a phrase in a passage, but
right.
This is somebody's life before to be demon possessed like that. And the way they portrayed it in The Chosen, like it does require some like deep delving into how someone with a good heart can get into that position. Right. Someone who wants to be close to God, someone who wants to be living a happy, joyful life, how that can happen to someone, and the bad cycles and loops and patterns that we can get into so easily and have such a hard time getting out of, because it's like you get heartbroken, and so you accept mistreatment or abuse, and then you're heartbroken again, and then you try to heal yourself, not heal yourself, but like alcohol or drugs or distraction or like, and then that creates more pain. And like, so it's just this thing that I think they did a wonderful job showing, like, this didn't just happen overnight. This is a type of mentality of like, this is, of being stuck. That really requires something and I think it requires the pure love that Jesus has for her to just separate from it, just to like, almost like a magnet, like it just doesn't work anymore in order to move on to the next stage. And so I myself was seeking that out, not just as an actor, just as a person. And so it was fun to be able to enact it and play it out in those scenes.
You mentioned the pure love of Jesus that must have helped her just to break, right? His loving gaze, his loving touch. And this is something that I think that scene so beautifully depicts. There's no hint of some of the other ideas that are out there about Mary Magdalene and Jesus, that they're lovers, or there's some sort of other romantic element going on there. There's just something so beautiful and pure. And I don't know if you think women would identify with this, especially those who have been in these life traumatic situations where they have been abused, or I've found more and more women identify with her when they've been in those situations. And I think that scene beautifully just it's a healing moment just to watch that scene. Right?
There's been a lot of response from viewers of like, of them feeling that same sort of sense of relief and redemption during that scene. I think Dallas even like broke down the entire, like the editing of it. And I was like, oh, this is going to dispel like the magic in it, but it doesn't. Like every time I watched, I'm like, there's just something about that scene. I don't want to take any credit for it, because it was, I think, such a collaborative effort, and also just something just special about it that I'm grateful to be able to just have been a part of.
So that was the sort of conversion scene, you could say, the being set free. We see her so peaceful, following Jesus. How do you enter into that part of acting now that you're following Jesus? What are the sentiments? What's the kind of interior world that's going on in your heart to portray Mary Magdalene in that moment?
It was interesting because while we were filming it, we went back and forth a little bit. So I was playing Lilith like 1 week, and then Mary the next, and then Lilith again. So it took some preparation before each one, just to like remind myself where I'm at. It was much easier when we filmed in the summer. It was the last 4 episodes of season 1 where I was just Mary the entire time. So that was pretty easy. and I didn't have like a lot of emotional scenes or anything. So it was just kind of like hanging out with the guys and watching these miracles happen. It was pretty joyful. To get into the mindset and like the heart space for Mary, was at first, I was so joyful for booking the role, that for those first 4 episodes, I was kind of in shock. I hadn't had like a win in a while, and I was walking on clouds or on air, whatever that phrase is. So it was really, I think just being on set and like getting to act in something that I loved so much, got me into this like, positive and hopeful state.
It sounds like it's life-giving to you. Sounds like it's been very life-giving.
Yeah, it's been, it's made me like, there are stories in the Bible that I had no idea about, and, to enact them and then go back and read, and like, this is some wild stuff. Like, this is, I wish I knew this growing up. I wish I knew this going to church. Like, it, for some reason, maybe it was because it was just written and not performed, but being able to like enact these stories that we were sort of familiar with, but to actually like imagine, like, what would it be like to see someone, a paralytic, like stand up for the first time? Like, what is that? And every single time there's like a healing or transformative moment in the scenes. There's something, there's a nice feeling on set.
It's special.
It's really happened, and to be able to watch it again is cool.
So for me to watch them, all these, it's almost like a prayer, watching the Gospels come alive. So I can't imagine actually acting them. In Plato's Republic and in psychology, they have this saying, this idea that you when you act out something, you sort of become what you reflect, or you take on certain dispositions or attitudes of the person that you're acting out. Would you share anything there? Is there something you feel like, of course it's you, it's your person, but are there ways in which it's sort of shaping your own heart, taking on this character?
I mean, as an actor, you do want to like remove yourself as much as possible, but you also want to bring what you know and your experience to the character. And I found myself a number of times, especially during the last 4 episodes, almost like nervous that I'm going to mess this up. That like, Mary is this historical and spiritual figure that like, I don't deserve to play, so it's this nerve-wracking thing of like, I want to honor this, but every time I go too far in making this like too holy, I think I look back and I see the performance, I'm like, oh, that's not it. I think the good thing about this writing is like, it really humanizes and these characters, and I'm realizing that the more human I let myself be, the better the performance, and the better I think the truth telling of the series, of the character and her story. So I'm trying not to like, I'm not a saint, and I didn't sign up to be a saint. Like I can't.
Not yet. Right?
Not yet. I mean, I'm a person, I'm a human, I'm a woman, I'm an actor, an artist, and like, I have a lot of things in my life that I hold dear, that I don't want to transform into this version that I think Mary is. All I can do is like be myself and listen to God and listen to my instinct, and like, trust that everything's going according to the right way, the right plan. And so, it's definitely, it's the whole experience has made me a much more joyful and positive, and I think probably thoughtful person. And so like I'm grateful for that, and it's made me, you know, excited about everything, excited about so many things, and relationships and friendships and work. But I do think there's like a little trap there of like trying to be a holy person because when I do that too much, I think the performance, it loses its humanness. And I think that's the thing that people connect to and need.
Yeah. Well, you mention it. People do connect to her in so many ways because she was so human, right? And like Jesus stepped into the messiness of her life. I like to, you know, use that expression. And even after this being set free of these 7 demons, I can just imagine her still struggling with certain things. I mean, she's the same person, but liberated from whatever was oppressing her. But she might have some bad habits still, or some things to overcome, or pride might bite her a little bit, you know, here and there. Right. So, so I'd love to see that come out in The Chosen a little bit more. Let's see if it does.
Yeah. I think even, you know, for storytelling too, and for good storytelling, there does have to be like some tension and some challenge. And I trust the writing that they know all of that, because they're fantastic storytellers. But yeah, I think even in some of the scenes for the last 4 episodes, I found myself like, as Mary, worrying about a lot of things. And so even though she's transformed and free of her past, there's still this like, I think there's a little sense of like trying to control a little bit, just so like Jesus doesn't get caught or doesn't get. She kept apologizing a lot for like, I called attention to you and you know, interrupted your teaching. And I think she's nervous about like doing the right things and almost overthinking it all, which I think that there's some opportunity, I think, for me to even overcome in myself, just trust the thing, just trust all of it. There's nothing you can control.
So your character is entering into her character too.
Yeah.
I think that happens with certain models that can be in our life as well. And what I love about Mary Magdalene is she shows us a journey, right? And we're all on a journey. And when we look at her life, from where she came from, and what at least the last outcome we see in scriptures, that she ends up sharing with the disciples, being the first one to bear the good news that Jesus is risen. It gives us a sense of hope, and precisely what you said you're experiencing, great joy. So she really does become this sort of icon of hope and joy, but through the realism of she had to struggle, right? And it's not an easy path at all.
Struggling from the beginning, and then also, I mean, the crucifixion and seeing your best friend. You know, we all know Jesus as this icon and figure and something that's beyond us, but for her, he was her best friend. You know, to see something like that.
Rabboni.
There's just a lot there that I'm you know, I want to get right. But
well, let the Holy Spirit take you there, right?
Right. Yeah. There's again, nothing to control.
Exactly. So I wanted to ask you if what your hopes and your dreams are for your future in your professional life. If you could share that with us, because this I think it sounds like it's opened a door for you in a positive direction.
It has. I mean, the dream, of course, would be to play this through the seasons, right? My acting career was mostly commercial and industrial stuff, spokesperson. I still enjoy doing all of that, but the lifestyle of being an actor is just tough. There's so much rejection, and you know, a lot of projects out there that like I don't want to be a part of. I don't, you know, I don't, I'm realizing from this experience that like I'm not a good actor unless my heart's in it.
Mm.
And I realize now looking back on a lot of things, like my heart wasn't in a lot of what I've done. And so there's the desire to like act and just do anything, and the idea of being famous, any of that, like I'm kind of over. I'm tired of the idea of that type of success. Even with like fans reaching out, like it's overwhelming for me. I'm a really private person, and I love acting for the experience of living someone else's life. But that really requires really good writing and really good production. So part of me wants to maybe, like, you know, if The Chosen's not filming, kind of go back to theater. I think there's really fantastic writing in theater. And then of course I'm a filmmaker, and I'm focusing on telling, from here on out, a lot of my filmmaking and storytelling has shifted and changed. What the types of stories we tell and the types of voices we want to help magnify. So from here on, I'm focusing on sharing women's stories that are not often heard, and giving a voice to those who maybe haven't had much of a voice in their lives. And then I also have I run a film festival with my friend Giselle Marie Munoz called Austin Arthouse Film Festival. My background's my BA was in film studies, so I'm a cinephile, and so we do a lot of spotlight a lot of artists around the world, their art house filmmaking, and we're starting to give back a little bit with prizes and cash prizes and awards and everything. So there are a couple things in my life that I'm wanting to give back through that mentality of cultivating and nurturing a community is very new to me, because before this show I was pretty selfish. I was really selfish, and thinking about like my career, my success, my image. It was all focused on me. And since this, I'm realizing like there is no me unless there is an us, and you know, community has become a really important factor in my life, and a really important element that I want to continue to cultivate. So whether it's acting or directing or anything like that, I'm realizing this is about community.
Yeah. And it sounds like that's giving you joy as well.
Oh yeah. More than any concept of success could.
Well, I think that's a beautiful testimony to a lot of people out there that are trying to figure out their path as well. So thank you very much for sharing that.
Absolutely.